We are acting as Nike's Corporate Responsibility, Sustainability, and Governance Committee, so we're internal. And I'm going to pass it over to Luis to start the presentation.
And who are the judges? Who are we supposed to be?
Oh, sorry. The judges are supposed to be Nike's board of directors.
Okay.
Good morning, Board of Directors. Today, we will be presenting a proposal on how we believe Nike can continue to move forward, a push to do well by doing good. Our company's founder, Phil Knight, once said, "Dream audaciously, have the courage to fail forward, and act with urgency." It is in this spirit that we are here today, as previously mentioned, members of the Corporate Responsibility, Sustainability, and Governance Committee, to talk to you. My name is Luis Otero, and I am the committee's general counsel, and I'm here with my colleagues.
Hi, my name is Gina Payton, and I'm the Chief Ethics and Compliance Officer.
Hi, my name is Christine Ginnessy, and I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer.
Hi, my name is Maceo Patrick, and I am the Financial Director.
Again, today we are here because you imposed on us a mandate to present to you a strategy for expanding into new markets while also promoting sustainability. With our recommendation, you will find that it focuses on enforcement, accountability, and empowerment. Moreover, we seek to appeal to a new generation of consumers by also creating a better environment for our employees. Now I'll pass it over to Gina, who will talk a little bit more about.
Hello. First, I will start us off with some of Nike's successes over the years and a few of the challenges the company has faced along the way. Next, we will provide our recommendations that we think could help us with our sustainable supply chain management. Lastly, we want to present how we plan to move forward for Nike's continual success. So moving on, Nike has had a lot of success throughout their time, and not just on the field, but also in environmental and sustainable development. Nike has also been able to build up a loyal consumer base and have become major players in the sportswear industry. Nike has also been able to provide equal and fair pay for pregnant employees that are within the corporate offices. And lastly, Nike has made major strides on the Move to Zero campaign. The Move to Zero campaign mostly focuses around Nike reducing their carbon emissions within their supply chain management. However, more must be done, especially in the name of ethical leadership. If we commit to these fundamental transitions, it is our responsibility to take care of the manufacturing workers that bring our amazing products to life. Decent work and labor is critical to the long-term success and sustainability of our company. Nike's vision. Nike wants to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. And when they say athlete, they mean if you have a body, then you're an athlete. Nike emphasizes that our products are made for everyone and everybody, pointing out that inclusivity is central to the core of our company's values. Moving on to our mission. Nike's mission illustrates the importance of expanding human potential, being innovative and sustainable, while also promoting diversity and making a positive impact in the world. So today we would like to present solutions that would keep us on track of upholding our mission and vision. So with that, I will hand over some of the problems Nike currently faces to Christine.
Thank you, Gina, for that overview on our successes. So like Gina said, I'm going to talk about some upcoming room for improvement that we might have in different areas. So as you can see here, this is our 2019 ethical report card, which is a report released on the major players in the sportswear industry. So as you can see, we are on here along with 3 of our top competitors right now. So these 3 competitors are doing much better in certain aspects than we are. As you can see, in auditing and supplier relationships, we received a grade of C, which was the lowest, as well as in worker empowerment, we received a grade of D minus, which I think we can really do better on behalf of our workers in these two areas. It led to us getting an overall grade of B minus, the worst of any of our direct competitors. And if we continue to do poorly in these areas, these competitors will surpass us. So now I'm going to talk about the sustainable aspect of what we can do. So in terms of sustainable development, I think we can really have a lot of room for improvement on SDG 8, specifically targets 8.5 and 8.8. Target 8.5 addresses equal pay for men and women in the workplace, as well as for those with disabilities, and 8.8 addresses fair and safe labor practices in the manufacturing supply chain, specifically for women, which make up a lot of these workers. So two areas that we're not doing so great on right now is that we're currently being sued in our corporate office in Oregon on claims of unequal pay for women and claims of sexual harassment not being taken seriously. As well as that, we can improve conditions for our factory workers, as there have been multiple cases of faintings in our factories in Bangladesh. And we can really, on behalf of the goals, a better company and more profit overall. So moving on, I'm going to talk about this room for improvement that we spoke about. So what's really important going forward is that we take preemptive action rather than reactive action, like we saw in the 90s with our scandal in our factories where we had unfair labor and accusations of child labor, and the same thing in the early 2010s when we were attacked for our lack of transparency. So before another thing like this happens, we need to take preemptive action and really do right on behalf of our workers. And really, we're an industry leader. We need to really take this and, set an example for everyone else. So moving forward, we're gonna, like I said, take preventative rather than reactive action and really fulfill what we say we're gonna do in our mission statement, where we're acting on sustainability and fulfill the opportunity for dignity for all of our workers. We really have a responsibility to address these concerns. And the next generation of consumers is also something we really have to focus on, as 70% of those under the age of 30 care about these ethical consumption issues. And women are the primary consumers of all clothing in general, so that means we really have to focus on them as a group. For a long time, athletic brands thought that they could just shrink it and pink it, as the saying goes, but that's really not good enough for the female consumer anymore. Women in these generations are 71% more concerned about buying ethically than their male counterparts. So we really need to focus on doing what's best for workers and improving overall our rights going forward. As well as that 60% of millennials say that ethics play a role in their consumption. So if we don't do better sooner rather than later, these other companies are going to surpass us, like you saw on the 2019 ethical report card. So now I'm going to pass it over to Luis, who's going to talk about our solutions to solving some of these issues.
Dean, for that overview about the challenges that we have faced as a company, but that I and our committee see as opportunities for us to do better and to do well with. As we see here, Nike's mantra, which propelled us into success in many ways, just do it, has been seen by many athletes as a way of the life. This just do it shows that tells these athletes that they need to be doing the best that they can in order to reach success. But we want to urge that Nike should not just be doing what they do currently, but they need to be doing it well. And therefore we want to promote three aspects of our recommendation and focus on enforcement, accountability, and empowerment. So to begin with, as far as enforcement goes, Nike's code of conduct really focuses on fairness, safety, respect, and sustainability. Now, as Gina mentioned earlier, we have made strides towards trying to reach towards sustainability as far as environmental standards go. But we want to focus more on sustainability as it relates to labor sustainability within our supply chain. In doing so, we want to continue to uphold all of our pillars, especially fairness, safety, and respect for all of our workers in promoting sustainability. Therefore, our first recommendation, enforcement, deals with the legitimate enforcement of our Nike Code of Conduct. We want to start by doing two things first. The first being decrease of agency hires. These agency hires are workers who are hired through external agencies and thereby aren't considered full workers of the manufacturers within our supply chain. The problem with this is that most of these workers, because they are temporary, then do not enjoy the benefits or all of the benefits or equal pay as other employees do. So by decreasing agency hires, we want to address these inconsistencies and or inequalities. Moreover, we want to promote the idea of becoming a fair trade certified company, because by doing so, we would have an external organization that would be able to vouch for what we say we're doing through our code of conduct. Moving along, we want to promote accountability at all levels. This we want to do by enhancing our audits for increased transparency. Currently, we have a lot of say in when and how these audits happen, but we want to advocate for us to consider implementing an independent, random, and increased in frequency auditing system. Moreover, as far as accountability goes, we want to ensure that our employees feel safe and that their rights are protected. Therefore, we want to recommend the implementation of an anonymous employee hotline, and in order for them to report any violations to our code of conduct. And we also want to promote the establishment of an employee labor council, which would be comprised of employees all throughout our supply chain who would have a voice at big meetings such as this, in order for them to be able to keep us up to date with what's going on in the industry and what they're seeing on the floor. Moreover, we want to focus on empowerment. We want to focus on empowering of our partners and our employees. And we want to do this through a social media campaign that we would use the hashtag #JustDoWell for. And so with this campaign, we want to be able to promote all of the changes that we are doing as far as these recommendations go, and showing that we as Nike are taking care of the most vulnerable members of our society, and we're also advocating for diversity and diverse practice. Now I'll turn it back to Gina, to Christine, who will talk a little bit more about our sustainable and ethical analyses.
Hi, thank you, Luis, for that overview on our recommendations. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about how we analyze these. So like I had said before, we are an industry leader, so we must fulfill promises made to our stakeholders, fulfill our mission, and really focus on future consumers in, this next year going forward. We can be an example for others, and we need to ensure that all manufacturing firms are holding up the minimum standard of our code of conduct, as well as environmental and safety requirements. So I'm going to go a little bit more into talking about the sustainability aspect of this. So like I said, we really are striving for sustainable and inclusive economic growth. This is taking steps to ensure that the women sewing our clothes are treated fairly and have adequate channels to report violations, and that these requirements to ensure that the women at our corporate level are paid equal wages to their male counterparts and have, a safe workplace where accusations of harassment are taken seriously, as they might not have been in the past. We want to highlight that we have kind of been struggling with the treatment of our workers, so we want to focus on this social sustainability going forward. As we know, women account for 70% of our manufacturing workforce. So imagine you are one of these women that fainted in one of our factories and you feel like, the company you work for might not care about you. You don't have accurate outlets to report this information. So we really want to do right by those workers and make that change, because happy workers, makes a more profitable company and a better work environment overall. So going into our ethical analysis, we want to stop prioritizing profit over people. We, like I said, have that responsibility as an industry leader to make that change. We want to really compensate the workers for this amazing work that they're doing for us, and defend their rights, because a lot of the time these women are low educated. They don't really have much option but to work at one of these factories in the areas where they're from. So we want to ensure that it's a safe and healthy environment for them. As well as that, on the corporate level, the majority of our corporate employees are male, and we want to change that to really appeal to the female consumer in the future. 96% of Athleta, which is one of our direct competitors in this sphere, 96% of their employees are female. So they're really far ahead of us in these kind of spheres, and their profits are increasing because of it. Like I said, women are the primary consumers of clothing, so they are paying attention to these things, especially in the younger generation. And lastly, like I said, we want to have comprehensive social side and address all of those different aspects that people don't always think of when they think of sustainability. We are obviously doing really well on the environment, but to have it be comprehensive, we need to focus on both sides of it. And now I'm going to pass it back to Luis to talk a little bit more about the legal implications of our case.
Thank you, Christine. So one of the challenges and areas for growth for Nike, in which we can definitely address, would be the fact that there are varying regional laws that deal with how the treatment of workers from country to country. Therefore, this is where our code of conduct and our adherence to it really would provide us an opportunity to, again, be that leader in the industry who treats its workers well and do good by doing well. Moreover, as we highlighted earlier, that we do have an ongoing lawsuit right now in Oregon because of allegations of equal pay acts against women. Another thing to keep in mind is that we are a signatory of the United Nations Global Compact, and what's most applicable to our case is Principle 6, which talks about eliminating discrimination in employment and occupation. And so again, our recommendations really try to fill a void where there is one, since there is not a consistent standard as far as laws go in different countries. And we try to fill this void by being able to adhere to our code of conduct. This is one quote by the plaintiff on the case that we talked about that we're currently in. And the general sentiment of this quote really stresses the fact that, according to the plaintiff, they perceive us as a company who does not back up what they say they do, what we say we do, as far as the way we value women. And so they want us to, again, be able to back all of our initiatives or everything that we post on social media with real action. Now I'll pass it over to Maceo, who will talk a little bit more about our opportunities as well as financial implications.
Thank you, Luis, for that great legal analysis. So I will now begin to discuss our financials. We here at Nike are a world leader in sports apparel, and other companies in our industry that have implemented sustainable measures have experienced a great increase in returns on investment and a decrease in fines. And we too can experience gains such as these, since we have not experienced them in the past. And our consumer base is becoming increasingly socially conscious and socially aware. And then we can adapt to this evolving consumer base in our market and our target audience by increasing our sustainable measures and by treating our female employees in our home company and throughout our supply chain with more respect and more ethically. Okay, so this is a pie chart that represents our revenue for 2019. As you can see, our men's sector greatly outweighs both our women's and our kids sections combined. And we believe that we should focus way more on our women's revenue. And this will increase our overall net profits. Okay, so these two graphs represent the stock market from 2016 to 2020. And as you can see, there are big gaps between the competition and us. But we can close this gap and potentially overtake our competition by increasing our presence in the women's market, by increasing our price point, and by treating our employees better. Okay, so these right here are our competition in the women's market, specifically sportswear. And a sportswear guru once said, Yokohama, he said that athleisure wear became a new norm. It's not just a trend anymore, it's everybody's outfit now. And this shows how athleisure is becoming more and more popular and how we need to capitalize on this trend and take advantage of this market. And we can do so by taking advantage of our socially responsible audience by increasing sustainable and ethical measures. Okay, so this here shows how we here at Nike have the lowest gross profit margin in comparison to our competition. And by increasing our price point, we can overtake this gap. And our gross profit margin in general is used to tell the financial health of a company. And since ours is the lowest, you can say that we have the weakest financial health, but we can increase our financial health by increasing our price point. So this right here shows our popular collaborations and endorsements with athletes and brands. But what may not be so easy to tell from these pictures is that they're all male-oriented. Even like the shoe styles, they're predominantly male-oriented for a male audience, hence why our male revenue is so large. But we believe that if we increase our collaborations and endorsements with female-centered brands and more female athletes, we will increase our women's revenue. And we also suggest that we begin a new social media campaign that is transparent. That way we can increase our women's revenue. According to our McKinsey report on supply chain advantages, Nike will experience 11% increase in product valuation, and we will experience 50% a reduction in costs for our sustainable supply chain management if we decide to become more ethically concerned with our female workers and improve their working conditions. And now Luis will conclude our presentation by explaining our method of implementation.
All of these recommendations really will hinge upon what we do during these next 12 months. We believe that during the first 3 months from today, we have to roll out this social media campaign and implement our anonymous hotline. Within our first 6 months, we need to start improving our hiring practices to decrease those agency hires, as well as to seeking to become fair trade certified and establishing our employee labor council. And then definitely we do want to, within the first 12 months, start to revamp our audits in order to ensure that we are properly adhering to transparency throughout all of our company. Moving forward, if we do act now, a year from now, we can become that company in which workers can feel more empowered and are happier in their workplace. We will be able to take advantage of profits in the athleisure markets as it relates to women, and we will be able to be seen as that company that, again, promotes fair work worldwide. Thank you, and now we are ready for your questions.
Well, I can't stay on this meeting very long because instead of catching an airplane, I have to get back to my sofa. But if we raise our prices to drastically increase the top line, aren't people just going to buy our competitors' products?
We will still have our products that we normally produce, so much of, which is another thing that another aspect of Lululemon's strategy that we want to implement some of. So we'll keep our products that are the most popular at the lower cost, but we're also going to implement a whole chain of athleisure products that have a higher price point, but we're going to produce less of them, so it will increase demand. And for like Lululemon, they produce these very exclusive lines of leggings that get sold out very, very quickly. So that's the model that we kind of want to follow going forward.
And it's also noteworthy to go back to this McKinsey report, which found that, again, for companies that practice good, robust corporate social responsibility practices, consumers are willing to pay an added 11% increase or at least Nike or companies who practice these robust CSR initiatives find an increase of 11% product valuation. And so again, as we talked about throughout this presentation, a lot of the younger consumers, about 70% of them, really want to make sure that the things that they're buying are sustainable, and so they would be willing to pay this premium.
And Luis, if you go to the first slide in our appendix, you can see this example of how Lululemon is making a profit from this turnover of higher price goods right here. So in terms of inventory turnover, Lululemon is doing the best out of us and our direct competitors.
Hi, this is Rochelle, and I came in late, but I have a question about whether this would replace the low end. Nike has a whole low end, slim profit margin athletic wear. So would this replace it, or would this be in addition to it?
We would just decrease our production of that slightly to increase this smaller line of athleisure. Like you saw with the inventory turnover, we're already not turning over all of our inventory. So it would be best for us to cut just by a little bit, but keep all of those lines as an option for people that are looking for more affordable options. But we will also implement this athleisure line for higher price points to be in competition with companies like Lululemon.
I have a couple of questions. Let me start with, I'm sure you saw in the Global Code of Conduct for Nike that we do already have a hotline. So I just wanted clarification. Are you suggesting that we launch new promotions campaigns and focus on awareness of the hotline for employees who may not know that it's there for their benefit? Or are you suggesting that we implement a new and additional hotline?
Thank you. So yes, we would want to err more also on the side of letting the employees know all of their rights and being able to promote this more so, because oftentimes employees don't realize that there's something out there for them. And so if we were able to be, again, in the spirit of transparency for the stakeholders involved, we would want to make sure that they're knowing more about this hotline that's available.
And to add to Louise's response, we also would like to ensure and put out to the employees and the manufacturing workers that they will be safe if they do want to reach out, and that they won't be penalized for something like that. And they can feel a bit more comfortable in their working environment.
Okay, thank you. My other question is, I understood from your presentation how things like adding a new line or adjusting price points, things like that might have an impact on our revenue, on our profits. The link wasn't as clear to me for the social sustainability initiatives that you were talking about. can someone just explain how the various social sustainability initiatives that you're recommending are going to have the effect of increasing our revenues?
So, like we had said throughout the presentation, the next generation of consumers, and especially women, really care about these issues of social sustainability. And we have been criticized, like you saw the quote from our gender discrimination lawsuit, for, saying we support women and having these ads that say those things. But in reality, we're not being transparent on these issues, and it's because we don't do as well as we say we are doing. And we don't keep up with our competitors in terms of doing well for our workers in our factories and at the corporate level. So really the whole thing is about backing up our whole message in our mission statement of sustainability, and fulfilling just our workers' safety and happiness. So it's really a whole, just doing what we're saying we're going to do, just do well.
John?
Yeah, I had two quick questions. One, on the international factories, where I believe, and that's where the major concern would be for the, by the way, great presentation. Sorry. On the international factory, what are you going to do if China says, you can't tell us how to treat our workers? Because I believe that's a current problem right now.
So like we had spoken about with cutting ties with manufacturing plants that are utilizing these agency workers, we're going to also make some changes in our auditing process to make them random, so that, they can't have agency workers and then on the day that they're scheduled for an audit, hide them and pretend like that's not happening. So we are going to cut ties with these manufacturers that are, pulling these tactics that really are not sustainable and unethical. And since we do operate in 43 different countries, we do have plenty of options. And if these manufacturers see that we are turning toward the more sustainable ones, they're just going to be forced to change their practices or lose business, because this is really the way that the world is shifting. As you saw, our competitors are already doing so. And since we are such a large part of the market share, if we do so as well, these manufacturers are going to be forced to turn toward these sustainable practices or not have any business.
And my follow-up question would be, typically women are categorized as smarter buyers, meaning they do their research, or you would see men as impulsive buyers. Most of what I've understood you to compensate for the changing to become more environmentally sustainable, you're going to have to increase your prices. How do you plan to explain to a smarter buyer, meaning your focus is on women, why they should pay more for your products?
So like we said in our social media campaign, we're going to have these female athletes that are really speaking on and promoting these issues. So they're going to be saying we're making changes in our factories to match what we're normally saying in these ads. We're really empowering women, and you can see it in how transparent we're being. So I think, like we said, 71% of women in this new generation really care about those issues, and I think they are willing to spend more. As you can see with Lululemon's $100 leggings, they sell out in days when they have special lines of them. They are doing much better in terms of inventory turnover. So I think that, when we show those things, if we shift a little bit in that direction, people will be willing to pay more for everything that comes behind it. And they already are. So we just need to catch up with that.
So in our factories in Bangladesh, are we supposed to follow Bangladeshi law or American labor standards?
So we are supposed to follow Bangladeshi law. But like I said, and like Louise said, there are so many varying regional laws. Since we do operate in 43 different countries, we obviously can't, it's very hard to keep track of all those different regional laws. So we want to really set a standard here and now for all of our factories will operate the same according to our code of conduct, regardless of regional laws.
And
And
just
it
to add on, go ahead.
sorry, if you want to expand on that.
No, I was just gonna say, and you know that is a problem that a lot of companies worldwide face, which is why you know the United Nations came up with this global compact, which is why us as Nike, we have the code of conduct that we want to adhere to, and oftentimes a lot of the negative feedback behind the global compact, for example, is how do you enforce these mechanisms? Well, you know, as huge as we are at Nike, you know, when if we decide to start doing the things that other people may fear to do or just don't want to do, there will be a shift in the industry and how great leadership is looked at. And so again, that's why in trying to adhere to our code of conduct and these global standards, this is where we try to fill that void in the laws, or the discrepancy in laws from varying regions.
I have a couple questions, if I could just jump in. I get that you want to roll out the social media campaign, add higher price points, expect consumers to reward us, so to speak, for that. But what are the actual deliverables or metrics? Have you set any goals before rolling this out? Is there a certain number of females that you would like to have on the board of directors? You mentioned manufacturing is 70% of the workforce, but corporate was majority male. Are there any targets for female managers and supervisors on the manufacturing side? Are there any kind of metrics that you want to announce that we've hit these levels, we're at these levels, and now we want to roll out the campaign, rather than saying we want to pay people more, but how are you going to manage the closing that gap and creating some of these things that social media and other messaging services can really unveil for you, make the change first?
Sorry, you cut out a little bit during that. From what I understand, you were asking about what we're going to do to measure these metrics, like, so we're not just saying things in our social media campaign before we actually do them.
Yes. So if you're saying that we've made a commitment to pay women more, to have more women on our board, to have more women managers in the workforce, do you have targets based on where we're at now and where we want to get to?
Yeah, so we have set some, you know, key performance indicators of what we want going forward. We are in our social media campaign, the first and foremost thing we're going to emphasize is transparency. And I think that people will really appreciate that. So even if we say this is what we're going to be doing within the next year, I think that we can still really have a good impact on that, instead of people continuing to criticize us for not making these changes, because we are going to, you know, release our new audits and be more transparent throughout the supply chain. In terms of the amount of workers we want at the corporate level, we realize it is very difficult to change a corporate environment, but we want to strive for somewhere that's more equal than we're at now, and eventually I think by 5 years get to 50%, equal representation. And as well as another aspect that we want to change is that we currently don't do reporting on employees with disabilities at the corporate level. So we want to change that as well, and really just be transparent in that whole process. And, you know, it is going to take longer to change the corporate environment than it will the manufacturing environment, because a lot of these things that we're focusing on are, you know, things that we can do in the short term, like cutting ties with factories that do have these unethical practices. So, you know, as we go, we're going to develop the plan even further to see what really is possible.
Okay, we're out of time. So everybody take a deep breath. You're finished, or should I say done with your presentation. I'll start with the feedback, if I may. Good job. Thank you all for being so flexible and helping us to reschedule your presentation for today. One of the things I particularly liked about your presentation was the revised slogan, "Just do well." That kind of, for me, summed up all of the hard work you put in. So thank you. Good job.
Thank you.
I'll go next. Terrific presentation. Two things I really liked about it. One is you all did a really wonderful job fielding questions. That's not easy to do, and your questions were very thoughtful and detailed and referred back to specific information, specific data. That's great. The only thing I'd suggest when fielding questions is not to say, you know, as we said before, because it can make the questioner feel like they missed something, or it can feel a little off-putting to say that, but it's really terrific job fielding the questions. The other thing is in the presentation, really excellent use of data. I'm not sure if judges are supposed to say this, but your presentation was among the best that we saw. Especially in this regard. You had a lot of information with the stock charts that you pulled, revenue breakdowns, McKinsey reports, and I really, really like the ethics scorecard that you used, because when you put those numbers up there compared to our competitors, that was very compelling, persuasive. So excellent job researching, pulling all the data, and tying the issues really to numbers that made a case for why we should really seriously consider the proposals. Great job.
I would like to piggyback and say the exact same thing. Your presentation was laid out very clear, very easy to understand. I really enjoyed the factual information as opposed to what you guys believed. There, of course, there's in marketing, there's always something you believe or a passion you have. But it was, again, answering the questions. You guys all answered the questions appropriately, and I love the way that you guys worked with each other. Very nice job.
Thank you.
I think I'd echo a lot of what's been said. I think the information was great. It definitely was refreshing to see something presented with the information and the data that makes the argument. You know, like you said, rather than just, we're of this opinion, here's our recommendations, take them. The ethics scorecard was really good as well. I had made a note of that. If that was done by an independent third party, I would cite that party, because it shows your independence even more, rather than you creating your own kind of internal assessment of the industry. If there's a, you know, Andrew Young's organization who initially led the inspection of the Nike factories. You know, you mentioned a few kind of lessons from the past, but I think if your audience is the Nike board of directors, you could have added maybe one more thing there of like, look, we've been through this before, we've gotten hammered before, we saw what the outcome was, and we want to get ahead of it. The recommendations were really, really good, and it was good to have kind of real-time information. The fact that you're currently engaged in an ongoing lawsuit was a delicate balance to bring in. So it was excellent. A couple tiny points I'd say is just, and it could have also been the presentation with the spacing, the first, just do it. And when you had just do well had one L instead of two, and a couple spacing with the graphics in the presentation, that just kind of like the last letter drops off. But other than a couple tiny things, and just, again, congratulations on adapting to this whole new format. You did great use of technology in a group setting, and I can't imagine trying to go back and do some of my presentations that way. So great job.
Thank you for that comment. And I do want to say that we originally made this in PowerPoint, but for some reason we're not able to screen share it with PowerPoint. It would make my computer crash, actually. So that's the reason for the formatting issues, is just that we had to present it in OneDrive last minute. So I apologize for that.
Literally right before we started to present, the crash was, so we apologize.
Yeah, and this is Rochelle. I think you guys did a great job researching with data as well. I'm kind of parroting what everyone else said. And then also adapting this to a Zoom presentation I've worked from home for the last 10 years, and it's a different way of presenting, and you guys did very well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for all your comments.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. It's been wonderful working with you and to your advisors. Thank you so much for your commitment to your teams and commitment to the process and commitment to the International Business Ethics and Sustainability Case Competition. On to Thursday. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks,
Next year in Los Angeles.
Thank you,
Good
Chief.
job.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.